Hello and welcome to this episode of Shatterdice Reviews, and today's board game review is Undaunted Normandy. Undaunted Normandy is the first in the series of Undaunted games by Osprey Games. It is a two-player competitive game set during World War II. Each player will control one of the belligerents during and beyond the D-Day invasion of Normandy. So, how does the game work? Well, to start with, you will be playing through a 10-mission campaign that recreates famous battles from the war. To do this, set up the map as shown in the campaign book for the scenario you are playing. Then each faction will construct their deck of order cards according to the setup instructions. In Undaunted, units on the board are represented by these tokens that correspond to your order cards. When you play one of these cards, you activate that unit. The objective of each faction is given here, and it's up to you to build your deck up and activate your units as best as you can to achieve your objective before your opponent and win the game. So let's take a closer look at these cards and how it all fits together. The cards in this game can be divided into three groups. I call them command cards, unit cards, and fog of war cards. Although there is no official names for these groups, it's just how I define them. Command cards are these cards here, such as platoon sergeant and squad leaders. These allow you to add cards from your reserve to your deck, or draw extra cards into your hand. Unit cards are these ones here, and each one corresponds to a unit token placed on the board. For example, these 5 Rifleman A cards all allow you to take actions with the Rifleman A token. A really nice touch is the different artwork and name on each card, giving the units some personality rather than being a nameless, faceless blob of soldiers. Then there is the Fog of War cards. These are junk cards that do nothing and just take up space in your deck. So, how do we use these cards to play the game? Let's take a look. This setup shows you the starting positions of both the German and American units on the board. Each side has their starting decks, shown here, and a reserve pool of all the units and cards that can be used as reinforcements for this mission. These are not always equal, with some missions having units such as snipers and mortars available for one side and not the other. You will also notice these binocular tokens placed on some of the map tiles. These are referred to as recon tokens, and their colours correspond to the factions matching that colour, green for the Americans and blue for the Germans. Units can only move onto tiles that have one of their faction's recon tokens placed on them. So all that being said, let's take a look at an example turn. Both factions start by drawing 4 cards from their deck. Here we can see the American player has Squad Leader A, the Platoon Sergeant, Rifleman A, and a Fog of War card. Both players must now pick one of the cards from their hand to play for the initiative. Whoever has the initiative goes first for this turn, and so this can be quite important at critical moments in the battle. This number in the top corner of each card is its initiative score. Once both characters have picked a card, they reveal them at the same time. Whoever played the card with the higher initiative value goes first. If it is a tie, whoever currently holds the initiative keeps it. This aspect of the game is already setting up some really good tactical choices. As we can see here, the Platoon Sergeant has a really high initiative, but he also has a lot of useful abilities. So if you play him to get first turn, you have to sacrifice the opportunity to use those abilities, as each player must place the card played in their discard pile. So, the Americans see that according to the setup guide, it is the Americans who begin with initiative. They decide to take a risk and play this useless Fog of War card from their hand. It has a very low initiative, and unless the German player also plays a Fog of War card, then the Germans will take the initiative. The German player picks their card, and both players reveal. The Americans are unlucky, as the Germans play their Squad Leader B card. The Germans gain the initiative and flip this token to the German side. Now, the Germans play their remaining 3 cards. Their first card is a Fog of War, and does nothing, and is placed in their discard pile. Their second card is Rifleman A. The Rifleman A squad has these actions available. Move, allowing them to move the Rifleman A token to an adjacent tile that has a German recon token on it. Attack, allowing them to attack an enemy unit. And Control, which allows them to control a tile. The Germans use the move action, placing the Rifleman A token on this tile here. Notice this shield icon on the tile. The number printed on this shield is added to the defense value printed on the unit token, making them harder to hit by enemy attacks. The Germans now play their final card, another Rifleman A. They choose to play the attack action, this time targeting the Americans' Rifleman A. To attack, they count the number of tiles between their unit and the target, in this case 2. Add this number to the target unit's defense. The Germans must roll a 6 or higher on a 10-sided die to score a hit. They roll and score a 9. When a hit is scored, the player being attacked must lose one of their cards matching the unit hit. Losing a card means it is out of the game for good. If they have a matching card in their hand, it must be lost from there first. If not, they will search their discard pile and lose the card from there. And if none are in the discard pile, they take the card from their deck and then shuffle their deck afterwards. Unfortunately, the Americans have a Rifleman A in their hand, which means they lose that card. It is returned to the game box as a casualty and plays no further part in the game. The German turn ends, and the Americans now only have 2 cards to play on their turn. The Americans play Squad Leader A and play the bolster action. This allows them to take 2 cards, indicated by the number 2 printed here, from any unit labelled A in their reserve, and place it in their discard pile. The Americans take 2 Rifleman A cards to reinforce the unit and place them in their discard pile. Next, they play their Platoon Sergeant and use their Command 2 ability. This allows them to draw the top 2 cards from their deck and play them. They draw 2 Machine Gunner A cards and play the first one for an attack. They target the German Rifleman A. The target is 2 spaces away with a defense of 4. However, the German Rifleman A moved into cover on their turn. The shield value of 1 increases their defense further to a total of 7. The Americans roll their attack dice. The machine gun rolls 2 dice and scores an 8 and a 6. The 6 is a miss and does nothing, but the 8 is a hit, and as a result, the Germans must lose one of the Rifleman A cards they played in their turn. The Americans then play their second machine gunner, and this time elect to use the Suppress ability. They roll 4 dice and need to score an 8. Luckily for them, they score 2 8s, gaining them 2 hits, but suppressing fire does not inflict casualties. Instead, the German player must flip the Rifleman A token to the suppressed side. This means the next time the Germans play a Rifleman A card, this token reverts to its active side, but does nothing else. The extra hit is wasted, as units cannot be suppressed twice. The same is true for a regular attack. You cannot score more than 1 casualty with an attack action, regardless of how many dice you roll. The dice simply increase your chances of inflicting a casualty. The turn ends and both sides have taken a casualty. However, the German Rifleman A has also been suppressed, and so the Americans' gamble paid off, putting them in a slightly stronger position. Now imagine if the Germans had not taken the initiative. The Americans would have been able to make another attack with their rifleman, or move him to a better position. The German rifleman would also not have been able to move into the position of cover, and so their defence may not have been as high. So, this example has covered many of the game's mechanics: moving, attacking, deck building, casualties, and suppressing units. But what about those recon tokens we mentioned earlier? If units can only move onto tiles with recon tokens, then half of the battlefield is useless, right? This is where the scout comes in. The scout unit has this scout ability, which allows them to move onto tiles that do not have recon tokens. When they move onto an unscouted tile, they place a recon token on it, allowing the rest of their army to follow along behind. But there is a downside. The player must add one of these Fog of War cards from their reserve to their discard pile, which will create problems later. This is a brilliant mechanic, simulating the way armies move as the scouts find the way forward and the heavier units move in to secure the area. The Scout is also a very versatile card in this game, as he can also use the Recon action, which allows you to remove a Fog of War card from your hand, or use the Smoke ability, that forces your opponent to add a Fog of War card to their discard. So you've probably noticed a lot of rules for adding cards to your discard. This is because after playing a few turns, you will have used all the cards in your deck. When this happens, you shuffle your discard to form a new deck. This means when adding reinforcements or Fog of War, it takes a little while for their effects to pay off. It is small rules like this that make this game so full of tactical choices. It is far better to bolster units when your deck is nearly empty than early on, but doing so requires taking the risk of a unit being defeated before you can reinforce it. This is because when a unit suffers a casualty and you search your hand, discard and deck for a card to lose, if you do not have one, that unit is removed from the board, regardless of how many cards that unit may have in the reserve. If they are not somewhere in your active deck, they are wiped out. That's pretty much it for gameplay. There are of course more actions to learn and more units to use, but this is the long and short of it. Most missions will see you moving around the board using your Rifleman's control action to take ownership of the tiles that have control tokens on them, while taking shots at the opposing force. When you achieve your objective, you win. With all that said, let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. The deck building mechanic in this game is a fantastic design, allowing you to build up your force from a small scouting party into a true war machine over the course of the game. It also requires a good amount of tactical thinking, as the more cards you add to your deck, the bigger your overall deck is, meaning it may take longer for you to draw the card you really need when you need it. You only have one platoon commander, and if you have 30 cards in your deck, it is unlikely he is going to show up when you really need him. The combat system is also a really simple but effective system. A simple die roll trying to beat a set value based on your opponent's unit and where they have chosen to position them. Also, not being able to inflict more than one casualty stops a lucky streak from giving one player an incredible advantage. Again, it's player tactics that keep your soldiers safe more than simple luck. The Fog of War system is good too. Though annoying, it is a great way to make you think about where and when you scout. Spreading your recon tokens all over the board will result in broken communication lines for your men and might see a whole turn wasted by a handful of Fog of War. So much of this game works well and has been designed with such careful thought. Osprey Games really hit the nail on the head with this one. The bad. Probably one of the worst parts of this game is the asymmetrical missions. This is by design, and rightly so, as the missions are recreations of real battles. This adds to the historical accuracy of the game, but it does get frustrating when your opponent has access to far deadlier units than you, or is already halfway to victory on their first turn. Setting up the map can also be a bit of an issue. Many of the tiles look very similar, and even though they each have an ID marker on them, it is quite faint and can be missed. It's not really a big issue, but it does slow down setup a bit. There's not much else to say here. As a PvP war game, Undaunted is just really good at what it does. The ugly. Or perhaps I should say, the Nazi. From a gameplay perspective, there isn't really much I can put here. But I understand that some people may be a bit sensitive to the fact that in this game, one person has to play as the Germans. Well, if that is the case for you, then it's probably best to avoid this, but then I'd suggest avoiding almost any World War II game. The best way to look at this is that you are not venerating the Nazi war machine, you are recreating historical events that took place, and perhaps learning a little bit of history while doing so. I think games like this are important to let you see what happens in war and the horrible decisions that must be made. Sure, it is nothing like the real thing, but that decision you make to leave your riflemen in the open so your scouts can get to a better position, well, these kinds of things happened, and the decisions by the people making them must have been extremely difficult. And knowing that gives this game's choices a much weightier impact than a completely fictitious theme like Marvel vs. DC, or Zombies vs. Aliens, or Space Corp vs. Space Union, or any other completely fictitious theme. Well, I don't really have anything more to say about that. So, what do I think of this game overall? It's a fantastic back and forth game that is not boring at all, filled with strategy, tension, a good chunk of dice rolling, and some historical snippets. If you like two-player war games, deck building, and lots of tactical thinking, I highly recommend this game, as I think it is one of the best I have played. Well, I'm bored of reviewing this game now. If you like these reviews, feel free to like and share, and subscribe to the channel. Bye.